But I did not want to shoot the elephant. The sub inspector had no intention to shoot the elephant. I watched him beating his bunch of grass against his knees with that preoccupied grandmotherly air that elephants have. So the elephant was very calm. It was beating a bunch of grass against its knees. It seemed to me that it would be a murder to shoot him. He was thinking inside his mind that in this condition, if he shot the elephant, then it would be considered as a murder. At that age, I was not squeamish about killing animals. Squeamish means easily disgusted. So he was not feeling wrong to kill animals. But I had never shot an elephant. But the narrator had never an experience of shooting the elephant and never wanted to. And in his life, he never had the intention to shoot one. Somehow, it always seems worse to kill a large animal. Why? The reason is that elephant is a large animal. Besides, there was the beast's owner to be considered. Also, it has its own owner. So, before shooting the elephant, one must think about its owner. Alive, the elephant was worth at least 100 pounds. Dead, he would only be worth the value of his tusks, 5 pounds possibly. See the difference. When it is alive, it was worth at least 100 pounds, and after his death, if he was going to be shot, then it would be only 5 pounds. But I had got to act quickly because he was having that immense pressure. So he must act quickly. He must act as soon as possible. I turned to some experienced looking Burmans who had been there when we arrived. So he was trying to get their opinions. So he turned back to them and asked them how the elephant had been behaving. He asked about his behaviors, how it was behaving. They all said the same thing. He took no notice of you if you left him alone, but he might charge if you went too close to him. So all of the Burmans, they were giving him the same answers. They were saying that if you are at a distance or if you are leaving the elephant alone, then it would not notice you. But if you went a bit closer to him, then he might charge. It was perfectly clear to me what I ought to do. He knew very well in his mind what he was going to do. I ought to walk up to within, say, 25 years of the elephant and test his behavior. As if he has heard that the elephant might charge if someone went too close to him. Then the narrator, the sub inspector, made the decision to test his behavior. If he charged, I could shoot. If he took no notice of me, it would be safe to leave him until the mahout came back. So if the elephant was going to charge, then it would be shot. If not, then they will wait. But also I knew that I was going to do no such thing. But he knew, the officer knew that he was not going to act like this. I was a poor shot with a rifle, and the ground was soft mud into which one would sink at every step. The ground was very soft, it was muddy, and the more one would try to walk on it, it would get sink, as if it was muddy and soft. If the elephant charged and I missed him, I should have about as much chance as a toad under a steamroller. If The elephant charged him as if he was going closer to him. Then the narrator would have a very less chance, a very less possibility. And he's comparing his situation with a phrase towed under a steamroller, a very difficult situation. But even then, I was not thinking particularly of my own skin. He was simply not thinking about his own skin complexion, but about who he was thinking? Only of the watchful yellow faces behind. So those yellow faces, those 2,000 people who were following him, he was simply thinking about those faces. For at that moment, with the crowd watching me, I was not afraid in the ordinary sense, as I would have been if I had been alone. If he was alone in that situation, he would be afraid. But behind him, there were 2,000 people, so he could not show them his fear. A white man mustn't be frightened in front of natives. So, this is a rule, this is the power dynamic they have set, that a white man can never be frightened in front of the native people. And so, in general, he isn't frightened. So, to be very clear, he was not frightened. The sole thought in my mind was that if anything went wrong, those 2,000 Burmans would see me pursued, caught, trampled on, and reduced to a grinning corpse like that Indian up the hill. So the tension which he had in his mind was that if the elephant charged, then only the Burmans would see him caught, trampled, and reduced to a dead body by the elephant, the way they have seen what happened to that Indian coolie up the hill. He was reduced to a corpse. So that same thing might happen. And if that happened, it was quite probable that some of them would laugh. That would never do. So if that situation happened, then definitely some of the Burmans who were following the officer, they would laugh at him. But the officer cannot let this happen. To avoid such a thing, he made the decision. There was only one alternative. I shoved the cartridges into the magazine and lay down on the road to get a better aim. So he loaded the magazine and lay down on the road to aim at the elephant. The crowd grew very still, and a deep, low, happy sigh, as of people who see the theatre curtain go up at last, breathed from innumerable throats. Innumerable means too many to be counted. Almost 2,000 people were following him, and they were breathing, they were very relieved at that moment, as it was a happy sigh, as if they wanted this thing to happen there. They were going to have their bit of fun after all. That was a funny thing to them, might be. The rifle was beautiful German thing with crosshair sights. He was describing the rifle. I did not know that in shooting an elephant one would shoot to cut an imaginary bar running from earhole to earhole. So he have to shoot from earhole to earhole. I ought, therefore, as the elephant was sideways on, the way the elephant was standing, to have aimed straight at his earhole. Actually, I aimed several inches in front of this, thinking the brain would be further forward. So he was aiming, he was um, thinking very clearly that he have to shoot the elephant no matter what. When I pulled the trigger, I did not hear the bang or feel the kick. one never does when a shot goes home. But I heard the devilish roar of glee that went up from the crowd. So when he pulled the trigger, when he finally shot the elephant, he did not hear that sound. But there was another kind of devilish roar of glee. Glee means great delight. That sound came from the crowd of the natives. In that instant, in too short a time, one would have thought even for the bullet to get there. A mysterious, terrible change had come over the elephant. So everything changed in that moment. He neither stirred nor fell. He did not move, nor did he fall down. But every line of his body had altered. He looked suddenly stricken. He was seriously affected by that unpleasant feeling of the bullet, so he was stricken, shrunken. He was becoming smaller, immensely old, as though the frightful impact of the bullet had paralyzed him without knocking him down. So he was being paralyzed. At last, after what seemed a long time, it might have been 5 seconds. The duration was of 5 seconds, I dare say. He sagged, he bent down, flabbily, in a soft, loose way, to his knees. His mouth slobbered. Slobbered means when saliva was dripping out from his mouth. An enormous senility. Senility is a term which is often associated with old age, the weakness of old age. So, an enormous senility seemed to have settled upon him. It seemed that the elephant has certainly got very old. One could have imagined him thousands of years old. One might say that he is of thousands of years old. I fired again into the same spot. The second shot got fired. At the second shot, he did not collapse, but climbed with desperate slowness to his feet and stood weakly upright. So, with the second shot, it did not fell on the ground, but it climbed very slowly. With legs sagging, his legs were bending down and head drooping. His head was also bending down due to that immense pain. I fired a third time. That was the shot that did for him. So the third shot was the final shot. You could see the agony, agony means pain, of it jolt his whole body and knock the last remnant of strength from his legs. Jolt means making it move in a rough way. So, due to that shot, the final shot of the bullet, his whole body was shaking, and the last remnant of strength, last remnant means something which is left. So, the strength which was left, that was also leaving him. But in falling, he seemed for a moment to rise. For the last time, and for the final, at the final moment, he tried to rise up. For as his hind legs, hind is the word which is specially used for animals' legs, collapsed beneath him, he seemed to tower upward like a huge rock toppling. Toppling means he was becoming less steady, but he was trying to rise up. His trunk reaching skyward like a tree, he reached out his trunk. He trumpeted for the first and only time. In this very essay, Shooting an Elephant, this is For the first and last time, or the only time, we could see that the elephant trumped it. And then down he came, his belly towards me, with a crash that seemed to shake the ground even violently, and finally it collapsed. Orwell is giving picturesque description of how he shot the elephant and what was the outcome that happened after it. I got up. The narrator got up. The Burmans were already racing past me across the mud. The Burmans were going forward. It was obvious that the elephant would never rise again. It was very clear that it would never rise. But he was not dead, as the elephant was still alive. He was breathing very rhythmically with long rattling gasps. He was breathing in a rhythmic way, his great mound of a side painfully rising and falling. His mouth was wide open. I could see far down into caverns of pale pink throat. His pale pink throat was visible to the narrator, as his mouth was widely open. I waited a long time for him to die, but his breathing did not weaken. He waited patiently so that the elephant could die, but it did not happen then. Finally, I fired my two remaining shots into the spot where I thought his heart must be. Now, the narrator thought that he must shot the two remaining bullets in his heart, and he shot two times. The thick blood welled out of him like red velvet. Blood was coming out, but still he did not die. He did not die. His body did not even jerk when the shots hit him. His body was not even shivering after receiving those two shots. The tortured breathing continued without a pause. He was breathing in a rhythmic way, continuously. He was dying very slowly and in great agony. He was dying, and that was a slow process. But in some world remote from me, where not even a bullet could damage him further. So he was heading towards that very world, that remote world where bullet would never damage him. I felt that I had got to put an end to that dreadful noise. He was breathing and he was making a knocking sound, a very huge noise. So the narrator thought of putting an end to it. It seemed dreadful to see the great beast lying there, powerless to move. The elephant was powerless because it cannot move, and yet powerless to die. Neither it could die, and not even to be able to finish him. I sent back for my small rifle and poured shot after shot into his heart and down his throat. Then he took his small rifle and poured shot after shot. They seemed to make no impression. There were no impression, there were no changing of the situation. The tortured gasps continued as steadily as the ticking of a clock. The way a clock ticks, that is the same way it was continuing its breathing process. It was gasping steadily. In the end, I could not stand it any longer and went away. He could not tolerate the situation any more. I heard later that it took him half an hour to die. Later, he got the news that the elephant died after half an hour. Burmans were bringing dars and baskets even before I left, and I was told they had stripped his body almost to the bones by the afternoon. So they were collecting that his body, his flesh. Afterwards, of course, there were endless discussions about the shooting of the elephant. As the incident happened, and later there were endless discussions. The owner was furious, but he was only an Indian and could do nothing. Owner Definitely the owner got very angry, very serious, but he did nothing. Besides, legally I had done the right thing. Legally, the officer was right. For a mad elephant has to be killed like a mad dog if its owner fails to control it. So this is the legal statement that the mad elephant would be killed like a mad dog if the owner of it cannot control. Among the Europeans, opinion was divided. So the Europeans gave him different opinions. The older men said I was right. The younger men said it was a damn shame to shoot an elephant for killing a coolie. So there you could see the diverse opinions, differences in their opinions, because an elephant was worth more than any damn Koringi coolie. So again, this is a reflection of the colonial era or the rule that was at that time. And afterwards, I was very glad that the coolie had been killed. Finally, the narrator was very happy that the coolie had been killed. It put me legally in the right and it gave me a sufficient pretext for shooting the elephant. Why he was happy? Because as if a man had been killed, so it is legally right to kill that animal, to kill that elephant. I often wondered whether any of the others grasped that I had done it solely to avoid looking like a fool. This is the main thought, or this is the reason why he has said it a number of times that a Shahib should act like a Shahib. That he was wondering that whether anybody of the Burmans had noticed that he simply shot the elephant to avoid looking like a fool. He shot the elephant so that he could not be laughed at. So that was the whole essay. It was his experience, his own experience when he was serving in Burma as the officer.